Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Boulder. My name is Dr. Emily Coriath, and I serve as your music director. It is truly a joy to be with you this morning. You are so lovely. I'm one of many people who will welcome you this morning. That is very much on purpose. We will start, as we always do, in song. So if you're willing, please rise in body or in spirit. If you like reading music, our opening hymn is in the gray hymnal. There are two in the pews this morning. And if you don't like reading the music, the lyrics are here on the screen. Our opening hymn is number 318, We Would Be One.
We would be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other to show to all a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning which cleanses our hearts and points us on our way. As one we pledge ourselves to greater service with love and justice strive to make us free.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Boulder. My name is Rihanna Wiggins, and I serve as a member of the Worship Council, which is why I'm standing up here today. One thing I love about this congregation is the chance to be of service in a role like this. But to be honest with you, what I really love about this congregation is that when my heart broke this week for Renee Good, I knew where I wanted to be on Sunday morning. And I look around this room and I imagine that's a lot of the reason why a lot of you are here. There's lots of ways to be involved in this church, but I know that being connected to each other in this moment is what brings me peace and can kind of reset my week. I want to say I'm glad you're all here. I'm glad we can all find connection and community with each other. And I want to say to those online that we're also glad you're with us today. Please feel free to fill out the visitor form and the link in the description because we also want to connect with you. To give you more of an idea of what we're all about here, let me tell you about our mission. We say that here we connect bravely, we deepen spiritually, we embody justice, and we always love. We mean that this community is inviting you into our shared time together today into taking deep breaths together today, but also into a way of life, a way of being in the world that might just transform you. One of our values is celebrating our intergenerational community, which means our services might be a little squirmy or emotional, or someone might make a noise that you weren't expecting at a time you didn't expect. Maybe it's a small child, maybe it's people shifting in their seat or a lingering cough. But being together means making a space for these things without judgment. And it's always okay to move closer to hear or see better. This is our chalice, and the chalice is a symbol of the Unitarian Universalist tradition. It is a cup of life, sustenance to quench our spirit's thirst, a cup of celebration and resolve, a flame of hope, a light to warm our souls and guide us home. In order to warm our souls, may I invite you all to take a moment and turn to someone next to you with warm good morning greetings.
Friends, it may be that you arrived here this morning with your heart a little bruised, a little beat up by what happened this week. That's real, and there's more time that we'll spend with that in a little bit, a little later in the service. What we have for you first, though, is what really boils down to a very silly story. We chose it for two reasons. One is, it's a silly story. Horse meets dog. This is because I can't resist. This is my dog. And this is Stephen Heidi's horse. My dog was deeply confused by this horse. But we tell a silly story for two reasons. One of them is that it goes with the theme of the service, some of the things we'll talk about later. The other also is to remember that part of taking care of yourself in a difficult time is also to remember joy, to find moments of lightness and levity and laughter, because that recharges you too. We're people who face the reality of what's going on in the world, but we're not fundamentally a dour, depressed people all the time, unrelentingly. We hold both of it, all of the difficult things and all of the joyful things too. So in that spirit, we offer this story.
Wow, you're very big.
You are mistaken. I am not big. I am normal-sized. In fact, I was just about to tell you, you are very small. Is your smallness because you are a tiny baby?
Hey, I'm not small. I'm normal-sized. But you have weird feet. Where are your paws? Did you lose them?
My feet are not weird. Your feet are weird. Your hair is weird. Why don't you take better care of your mane? It only takes a few hours each day, and your tail sticks up. Your tail should hang down like a beautiful curtain.
I'm sorry we got off on the wrong paw, big pal. I got you a present.
That's really nice. I'm sorry we got off on the wrong hoof, small pal. I got you a present also. Here, look, it's a saddle. So that you can take people wherever they want to go. It's fun.
That doesn't sound like fun to me.
It is so much fun.
Thanks. I I guess. If you want to see real fun, just open your box. Happy birthday! I also decided it was your birthday. It's a ball! It's a ball! Throw the ball! Throw the ball! Go get it! Throw the ball!
You throw the ball.
No! That's not how it works. You go get it, I throw it again, then you go get it, and then I throw it again. It's my favorite game for obvious reasons.
I don't really see the purpose behind this game.
I don't like this present.
I don't like this present.
You don't?
You don't?
What kind of horse are you?
Well, what kind of horse are you?
What kind of dog are you?
We're... I see the misunderstanding. We're not dogs, we're horses.
No, we're not horses, we're dogs.
Here's the thing. I am not a very big dog. The fact is, you are a tiny horse.
I am not a tiny horse. You're a very big dog.
Tiny horse?
Big dog.
Tiny horse?
Big dog. Big dog.
Hello, bird.
You two are very weird looking birds.
Thank you, bird. Of all the times in life that you think you know something so clearly, only to find out later that you were wrong. Have you had this experience? Have you ever had this experience of, yeah, right, yes, is the answer. Rachel told me this week, that she was having a heated debate with a friend of hers about whether the food is called cup noodle or cup-o noodles. By a quick show of hands, who believes it's called cup noodles? All right. There were very few hands, but they were confident hands. All right. Who believes it's called cup-o noodles? All right. There are many people, but some of you are doubting yourself now.
And at 9 o'clock, it was a little more split.
Yeah, that's right. Here's the thing. Rachel told me that she learned eventually that until the early 90s, cup noodles used to be called cup-o noodles. I know, this is the sort of hard-hitting revelations you're going to get at church. The point is, both of them, in that argument, just like horse and dog, had to let go of their absolutely firm belief in light of new information, just like dog and horse needed to do. That process of letting your thoughts, letting your beliefs change when you learn new things, this is one of our core values, transformation. This is what transformation is. And that value, I'll say more about this later, is one of the things that Unitarian Universalism has learned from humanism. The sense that we're always lifelong learners, that we're always revising what we believe in light of new information. And with that slightly more serious message than my dog, let's sing together as kids head off to classes.
Of course, it turns out there's an amazing song about this. Yay! It goes like this. I'm listening. I am listening. Spirit, speak to me. Same words, a little bit higher. I'm listening. I am listening. Spirit, speak to me. Ears come first. My ears are wide open. My eyes are wide open to see what I may be. I'm listening. Big jump. I sing the whole thing again. I'm listening. I am listening. Spirit, speak to me. Same words a little bit higher. I'm listening. I am listening. Spirit, speak to me. Ears come first. My ears are wide open. My eyes are wide open to see what I may be. I'm listening. Big jump. I am listening. Spirit, speak to me.
Will you take a breath with me? The practice of lament, of raising a cry of suffering, of mourning aloud, of naming a grief that is unanswered and unanswerable. Surely this is deep in the bones of what it is to be human. On Wednesday, an immigration and customs enforcement officer murdered Renee Nicole Good. I saw, like many of you, the video, the photos from that neighborhood. This is one. And I knew it well. I lived for 5 years a mile away from there. I know those South Minneapolis streets and the bungalows and small apartments. I know Minneapolis in January, where you don't leave the house unprepared for the cold. And I know those people, those neighbors, fierce in their care and protection for one another, clear on who they mean about loving their neighbors. Renee was a wife and a mother and a citizen with no criminal record. And I don't say that to justify her worthiness not to be killed, but to name plainly that if you think your citizenship or your whiteness or your money or your age or your status as a parent will protect you, these things will only protect you if they come with silence and obedience. What I've felt these last few days is outrage and exhaustion to tiredness, numbness, that this is one more thing in a long line. And there's more ahead. This weary, disgusted certainty, this isn't going to be the end of it. In this house, we tend to our inner lives exactly so that we can live in the actual world. Exactly so that we can help each in our own way to heal the world. We tend to our inner lives because to live in the world with your eyes open to what's happening and to keep your heart rooted in our deepest values of love, of justice, that's hard. It's exhausting work to live without pretending that pessimism is realism or that cynicism is wisdom. To live without pretending that private anger substitutes for public action. It's work. There are things to do and action to take. There are immediate things to do, right? To start where you are and use what you have and do what you can. come to the Know Your Rights training from the ACLU next Sunday here at 12:30. Join the national walkout on the 20th and other visible actions. Sign up in the Justice Fair after the service for the Democracy Defenders mailing list to know what else is going on here locally. So yeah, start where you are and use what you have and do what you can, and don't neglect the inner life, because that's what equips us to stay in this work. And make no mistake, this is long haul work. When new members join, I tell them, you've heard me say it, that we're here to do the mundane and holy work of making a life in community. And it happens in mundane and holy ways. We weep and laugh and sing and sit silent together. And we serve on committees. And we show up for potlucks. And we mourn our dead. And we bless our children. And we break our hearts open to the world over and over. We hope together and we lament together. And the heart of the work is to be human in an inhumane world, in an inhumane time. This everyday work as living as whole human beings, clear-eyed and broken-hearted, undeceived, and deeply in love with the world and its people. So I can't tell you, I'm not going to tell you that everything will be okay. And I certainly won't say that now things will get better. But I will tell you that this is a community of love and resistance which will not give up on you or shut you out, which will not sacrifice the worth and dignity of every person on the altar of silence and obedience. The rage you are feeling, writes the poet Nikita Gill. The rage you are feeling comes from the same place inside your heart as the love. This is why you refuse to accept a world where cruelty reigns, where fire consumes all. You have known hope and joy and kindness like you've known water. And justice is a river that demands you do not give up on it. We'll be together in silence for a few moments. The ritual we do, the rituals we do, all of it, all of this work together, gathered, it's an outward expression of an inward movement. And in this moment, in moving our bodies and placing stones to symbolize joys and sorrows, we're like gardeners of our hearts, our minds, our spirits, gardeners, patiently, slowly, training ourselves to recognize how hope and suffering are both woven daily into living. In ritual, learning and relearning, practicing, becoming a people who know that beauty and tragedy fill this world. In a moment, as the music begins, for those of us gathered in person, I'll invite you to come forward if you feel moved. We'll start with the back, then the sides, and then the front of the room. And silently to take a stone and feel its weight, feel your body warm it, and let it be an emblem of everything that's on your heart, your thankfulness, your worry, your gratitude, your fear, your hope. And then place it into the earth in the company of all the joys, all the sorrows of this gathered community. And then to return to your seat in silence and let the music carry you. Let the stillness of that moment go back with you. Before we begin, I have three joys and sorrows to lift up. First, today is Marge Mago's 94th birthday. Long time member. She's unexpectedly in the hospital, but in social hour, we have a cake from her, and we're going to call her and sing her happy birthday all together. So don't miss that after the service. Kim Kapuska writes to share concern for her sister, Michelle, getting a biopsy this week, and blessing for her sister, Charlotte, in remission from multiple myeloma. And finally, we hold in deep love and tender care Beverly and George Garmany. Their daughter-in-law, Sherry Leapart, died last night in Albuquerque after a 6-month fight with an aggressive cancer. She was 46. She died too young. Her bright spirit will be remembered always. For all the blessings, for all the concerns we carry, we hold this space with love. And I invite you to come forward as you feel moved. take a breath with me? There is a part of me that feels like talking about humanism this morning seems so academic, so like removed from the reality, from the living of this week. And two, I was struck, I heard from someone this morning who shared that this was their third day in a row of coming here. That on Friday night they'd met up in the parking lot and then carpooled down to protest in Denver together. That last night they got together with the millennial-ish group for potluck and connection and conversation, and then returned again this morning. They said, you hear, you read, articles show up regularly about how much of a difference community makes in a person's life. But it's a hard thing to find it, to make it, to grasp it. She was telling that story of gratitude for having found it, and I think it matters in a religious community to know that you belong here not because you think exactly in the particularly right way, not because you and all of us have grasped the singular way of understanding the universe that nobody else has. That you can be religious, spiritual, experiencing all of the, those traditional categories of awe and mystery and wonder, hope and justice, without the belief in a higher power. So, in the Renaissance, scholars and priests and educated lay people looked back to classical Greece and Rome and tried to revive the emphasis that they found in those old sources on living a virtuous life, a good life here and now. They studied history and poetry and moral philosophy, everyone's favorite, and rhetoric, in this effort to cut through the complexities, the abstractions of medieval Catholic theology and come back into this world again, a path to being a good human. And they called themselves Christian humanists, Christians to be sure, but students of the humanities, of humanity, with an orientation to this world and a concern, a way of living that wasn't privately about their own individual salvation, but publicly about how to order a world that allowed human flourishing. Centuries later, with that same question at the center of their life, the 19th century freethinkers who had left Christianity took up that label, humanism, to describe what it was they were doing. They defined their philosophical, their religious identity, not just in terms of what they said no to. They said no to a number of things, to God, to the supernatural, to miracles, to divine authority. The list goes on. But they defined their identities in terms of what they were for, what they were building, this path to being a virtuous, a whole human being in the world. Those 19th century freethinkers, humanists, had left Christianity largely because of the Enlightenment, of the notion that reason can discern truth, the whole concept of the scientific method. 19th century biblical scholars analyzed the biblical text through the lens of new archaeological evidence and through the lens of new linguistic analysis. This, I'm sure, is why you got out of bed this morning, is to hear about 19th century literary forms. But the point is, when they were going back to these texts in the 1850s and 70s, they had so many other sources to draw from that they noticed the biblical texts were written using different sets of grammar, different poetic forms, different vocabulary words, which they knew from their other reading were in use in various places and various times in a span of centuries and across, not continents, but at least the better part of Southern Europe. Presented with this new information, the sense of the Bible not being a divine dictation, but the writings of lots of different people in lots of different places and times, they had the courage to change their minds, to revise what they believed. At first, it seemed that that approach, this historical, critical approach to the Bible, was going to force a binary question. And in fact, this binary question is one that some of us, some of the larger culture still holds today. Either the Bible is literally true and religion is worth doing, or the Bible is just human creation and religion is one big sham. These services are streamed on YouTube. These options are, incidentally, how many of our commentators feel about these services. We just delete them and move on. But these are not the only two options. There is a third option here. William Schwartz, past president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, past president of Amnesty International, he tells the story of his years as a teenager, in his early 20s too, when two things happened both at the same time for him. And I think this may be true for many of you. Try this on, even if it didn't happen simultaneously for you. He said, on the one hand, he was fascinated by religion. He attended services, he read widely, he talked about spirituality with anyone who would listen. And then on the other hand, he did not in fact believe in God or in any of the religious things his parents did. That's a direct quote, and I love it because he speaks with such precision and eloquence. He says, I did not believe any of the religious things. Like prayer or heaven. He wasn't really interested in the truth of the Bible. And he summarizes this contradiction like this. He says, I was interested in religious questions, but I was not interested in the typical trappings of the answers to those questions. Religious questions. What is a good life? What do we owe to each other? How do we make compassionate, connected community a regular, intentional practice, not a thing that just we happen to stumble into every so often? How do we notice grace and express gratitude for all the endless unearned gifts that come with living, for living itself? How do we know what love should look like in public, like justice, says Cornel West? These are religious questions. But whatever your theology might be, I would guess that many of you are not here because you are interested in the typical trappings of the answers to those questions. I hear something like this from newcomers regularly. I hear them say, I grew up in a tradition which had things in it that I loved. I loved the service work that we did. Or I loved the hymns that we sang, they moved me. Or I loved how we cared about each other, we took care of each other. And then they say, but at a certain point, somewhere along the way, and for some people it's when they're real small, and for some not till much later, they say at some point I was told that the price of those things, the price of the music or the service or the caring for one another, was that they had to believe and affirm something that they knew wasn't true. Maybe about a scientific reality, maybe about the status, the role of queer people, of women. Maybe that tradition told them they were not allowed to revise beliefs in light of new information. And so they left. Integrity demanded that. And I hear from folks and from some of you, from many of you, this interest in religious questions, but not in the trappings of the answers. And this is the third path, a different kind of a path of religious humanism, which rejects the literalism of sacred text, which denies truth claims based only on authority, but which is deeply concerned, centrally concerned with what it means to be a human being in this world. How do we cultivate that full experience? Not just our analytical brains, but the whole embodied, enfleshed, complicated experience of who we are in all of our joy and sorrow and lamentation and longing and hope and courage and curiosity and awe. How do we face and make sense of the reality of evil, individual and structural, about the fact of unanswered anguish? How do we remember the beautiful and live our way toward it flourishing in us and among us? For the humanists, there is a clear and direct declaration that there is no such thing as authority by divine revelation. No text or tradition, no individual has a monopoly on truth. But it also doesn't mean there's a denial of the truth in those texts. Love your neighbor as yourself isn't true because Jesus said it. He said it because it's true. Or I think similarly, every Easter in this congregation, I retell that old story of death and resurrection, and I say some variety year after year that what matters is not the analysis of the factual account, but the way that that story describes an experience that we've had or will have here, now, in this world, dying, coming back to life, grieving, uncertain. By 1933, all those humanists, the Unitarian humanists, and the Jewish humanists, and others, came together to write a positive statement of what it was they did believe in. They called it the first, not at the time, they called it the Humanist Manifesto at the time. Now we call it the first, because there were two more between then and now. One of the signers of that declaration of shared principles of humanism was the philosopher and educator John Dewey. That gets like a few mms in here, yeah. There's my John Dewey people, yep. John Dewey, among a great many other things, he was a philosopher, educator. He talked about the difference between religion and being religious. For him, religion was that old edifice of requirements. Some beliefs you are required to have, some you may not even contemplate. On the other hand, for him, being religious was a quality, an experience, an intention of concern and care and participation in the world. The effort to live your values into reality. I think actually, even though he called that being religious, that's what sometimes people mean today when they say, oh, I'm spiritual but not religious. I'm spiritual but not religion. That doesn't work. That's not a thing. But that sense, I think at its best, is what humanism does with old stories, with myths and legends and sacred texts. This ability to distinguish between the literal, either to make it fact or to discard it entirely, and instead to find the meaning inside of it about our lived experience. Nor in that meaning-making enterprise are we confined only to sacred texts. We tell parables and old stories and poetry because the meaning of them exists in our engagement with them. I spend the time telling about Schwartz and Dewey and these good old 19th century free thinkers because part of what I want to do in describing humanism and its legacy is to make a distinction between humanism and atheism. And the Unitarian minister Kendall Gibbons, the humanist Kendall Gibbons, writes this. She says, let's begin with a clarification. While the terms atheist and humanist are often used interchangeably, they're not in fact synonymous. A person can be an atheist without embracing any of the commitments of humanism. And for that matter, a person could have a position of indifference, agnosticism, right, about the possible existence of God and still live with integrity as a humanist. She continues, she says, as a religious position, as a spiritual path, humanism looks beyond the idea just that a self-conscious personal God doesn't exist. Sort of like, great, yes, you don't believe that. So what, now? She does not write that way. This is my commentary on her. She's much more concise. She says, rather, humanism is founded on the much more radical claim that the existence, the non-existence, gods, goddesses, doesn't really matter because we're concerned with the world of human existence known through human experience. Here's what I mean. The story goes, I don't know if it's true, that on his deathbed, Henry David Thoreau was asked some question about what he thought was coming next. And the reply he gave was, "One world at a time, my friend." One world at a time. The humanist doesn't understand this life as being lived in preparation for one to come after this, whether it does or not. It doesn't seek to avoid or negate or numb you to the reality of suffering and death. Instead, it asks so simply, what does it mean to live a good life here and now? Kendall and other humanists would sometimes talk about their theology in terms of a kind of spiritual maturity, that no one else was coming to save the world for us, nor was someone else going to punish or reward you in a future reality. We must not wait to be rescued or excused, she said. So it's on us to get to work while we're here, one world at a time. Now, it's important to say that Unitarian Universalism is a theologically plural faith, a tradition without a creed that specifies everyone has to believe the same things in the same way. There's no creed about God. There's no creed about not believing in God either. Nearly half the signers of the first Humanist Manifesto were Unitarian ministers, the same bunch who pushed hard in the 1870s and on to make this a creedless religion. This fall, a humanist friend who I love dearly and argue with often, someone deeply formed and shaped and committed to a humanist path, concerned with the ebb of people in our congregations who identify as humanists rather than, say, as Unitarian Universalists, he shared his worry that there wouldn't be a religious home where people who reject supernatural things can still gather for ritual, music, mutual care, moral action. And I told him, I think actually unconvincingly, but I told him I don't share that worry because we're doing that. We're doing that here every week. It's just that we're not a home exclusively for humanists. There's no ideological purity test about whether you have the right belief in God or the right belief in not God. And this is the sharp edge of what it means to have among ourselves shared values and plural theologies. Every so often, a humanist joins the congregation thrilled, relieved, to find a community that welcomes and shares their values, that lets them be together without believing in God, who wants to build and not just sit in a circle of people who share who wants to define their life not just in terms of what they've left behind, but what they're creating, right? And sometimes those folks leave because we aren't an exclusively humanist community. Because you sit side by side with humanists and atheists and religious naturalists, with Buddhists and Christians and spiritual but not religious people who maybe now are religious but not religion people. And that's how we do community. I've said before, if this church was a meal where everyone brought a dish to share, it would not be a melting pot where we all throw it in a big mix and like boil it down and blend it. Right? I hear you don't want to be part of that church. If this church was a meal, it would be, fittingly, of course it would be a potluck, where everyone shares what they have, where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and where some things you do not want to try them. Ed and Amy often bring to our first Friday potluck, I don't mean to call you out, bring pickled beets, and they're the most delicious things I've ever eaten. And like 14-year-old me would be disgusted, right? He did not want to try that. He didn't want to try theological language either, right? But we change in what we need at different times, what we bring at different times. We get to change our minds in light of new information. Just like horse and dog, when you try pickled beets and say, oh my God, this is amazing. That feels like a stretch as an analogy. But this way of doing religion that we have as Unitarian Universalists, it means embracing a kind of complexity and an ambiguity. It requires a constant translation and seeking to understand. It requires a sense that you knowing where you are, what you want to try and put on your plate, may not be what the person next to you does, and that's okay. In the decades I've been a Unitarian Universalist, I don't worry about humanists and humanism disappearing in our tradition, because I've watched those values become central, so central to who we are that they don't need a separate banner. The refusal to accept authority based on divine instruction alone. The belief in the reality of science and the scientific method. The central concern for a life lived in this world, one at a time. The commitment to agnosticism that lets us revise our beliefs, change our understanding in the light of new information. The sense that we become fully human in community, in relationship with each other. The dedication to build a just world that allows all people to thrive here and now. These used to be humanist values a century ago. Today, they are unambiguously Unitarian Universalist values, things that unite us across all the differences we might have in theology and practice. A focus, that is, on deeds, not creeds. The slogan, deeds, not creeds, the rare example of Unitarian Universalist theology that will fit on a bumper sticker. It comes from Felix Adler. Felix Adler, and his words form our closing hymn we're going to sing in just a moment, Deeds, Not Creeds. In 1877, he founded the New York Society for Ethical Culture, another school of religious humanism, dedicated to the fullness, the wholeness of what it is to be a flourishing person in a flourishing community in the world, declaring that nothing human is alien to religion, so we ought to bring all of who we are into this enterprise, building the world that we dream of. Amen. We rise in body or spirit. Let's sing together.
Our next hymn is number 140 in the gray hymnal, and the lyrics are on the screen.
Hail the glorious golden city, pictured by
Each week, we split our plate with local nonprofits doing tangible work to make the world a better place. This month, our offering goes to the Future Arts Foundation, whose mission is to improve communities through arts, music, and environmental programs. The Future Arts Foundation hosts the annual Bluebird Music Festival, a concert series, and other cultural events. Proceeds from these events provide Colorado schools with instruments and allows them to host free youth arts workshops for the children of Colorado's teachers and first responders. As the baskets come around or as you scan the QR code, I invite you to give as generously as you are able. May our gifts be used to enact justice, bringing peace and love to the Boulder community. Before we close, I have 3 invitations for after the service. In the Sky Room is the Food, Drink, and Justice Fair. This is a chance to learn about our climate ministry, basic immigration, community garden, the LGBTQ connection, Indigenous justice, and the racial justice teams, who all have tables set up where they can answer your questions and help you sign up to get involved. At 12:30, here in the Hearth Room, the back of this room, is where the LGBTQIA+ group meets, and all are welcome. And finally, if you are newish and want to explore this community more deeply, from 12:30 to 2 in the Emerson Room is our Finding Yourself at UUCB new member class with lunch provided, and you are warmly welcome to join even without an RSVP. Will you rise in body or spirit as we close in song?
Feel free to join hands with the neighbors if that feels good to you. Feel free to opt out if that does not feel good to you.
Be ours a religion which, like sunshine, goes everywhere. Its temple, all space, its shrine, the good heart, its creed, all truth, its ritual works of love. Be ours a religion which, like sunshine, goes everywhere. Its temple, all space, its shrine, the good heart, its creed, all truth, its ritual works of love. Our worship ends and our service begins. Go in peace.